We are privileged today to have a few speakers on our panel as well. Firstly, we have Jedaiah Chen, a mental health advocate for youth and young working adults, and Alex Cheong, a father who's committed to support his son to live his best despite his conditions, and Sirin Yeoh, who advocates for mental health awareness through her lived experiences as a person in recovery. So we highly encourage you through the course of the sessions to write the questions that you may have in the chat, and the chat will be monitored to ensure that all of us are being actually heard and respected, and also whatever questions we have to be answered along the way as well. All right. So we also want to seek your kind understanding to share the conversation space, and so that we can make sure everyone has their voices heard as part of this session. Please do note that this session will include discussions that are related to sensitive topics such as alcohol abuse and suicide. We understand these subjects can be distressing for some of you. So if you find that these topics are uncomfortable or triggering at any point of time, please consider leaving the session, because the session, as you know, is recorded, so you can always come back to it at a later time as well. So just to let you know that for your sake of your identity, if you do not want to be recorded, please do note that you can leave the session at any point of time, and you can access this recording in a week or so after this session as well. All right. So just to kind of kickstart the session, just a bit of a background as well. According to an early finding from a Singapore Youth Epidemiology and Resilience study that involved about 3,336 people in Singapore between the ages of 11 to 18, 1 in 3 actually reported internalizing mental health symptoms such as anxiety, sadness, and loneliness. So why are these youth actually experiencing mental health conditions at such a young age? How can we play a role to support such youth as well? So that's what we are here to explore for this evening. So in the first part of this session, I would like to cordially invite Jedaiah, the founder and CEO of I'm Friendly Co., which Cal has a training collaboration with, to share the unique challenges facing today's youth in their personal and social life. In the next half, we'll have the caregiver Alex and also person in recovery Serene to join Jedaiah in a panel discussion to share their lived experiences as well. So a bit of background about Jedaiah. He's, like I mentioned, part of this mental health tech startup that's dedicated to creating a world where the hurt are heard, right? So that's a wonderful initiative that he started on his part. And he has also launched a web application to public supporting youth and young working adults with anonymous text-based peer support. So now I'd like to hand the time over to Jedaiah. Jedaiah, please.
Thanks a lot, Dina. And hello, everyone. So just going to do a sharing about, understanding the youths. Just let me share screen. But first of all, let me preface this like I'm not a mental health expert. And what I'm sharing with you today is basically from the perspective of youth as well, understanding the conversations that we've had. So I've titled this session is to understand a generation from a parent's perspective. A brief introduction about me, although Vina has done an amazing job, is that I'm the founder and CEO of I'm Friendly Co. And what we do is we're a mental health tech company who goes around creating platform and community. We help organizations and individuals develop their mental well-being. And every single week, our volunteers are online, lending a listening ear to the youth out there, providing them emotional support and having those conversations. And what I'm about to share with you guys today is basically a peek behind the scenes of all the, the thousands and hundreds of conversations that we've had with people. And I'm just going to share with you a bit more about that perspective from the youth. So I've actually thought really hard about how I can phrase this in a way that's really clear and bring the points across. And today I'm going to talk about 3 things: creating spaces, repairing spaces, and living spaces. So first of all, I'm going to talk about creating spaces. And what I mean about that is how can we create a safe space for your youths, for the people that you have influence around. I'm talking about approachability. When we talk about safe space, we talk about approachability. Are your children comfortable with approaching with you and having those conversations about difficulties that they're facing, right? And this just not applies to parents, it applies to any form of caregiver, whether you're a teacher, a person in power or authority. Are you approachable? Even if you're a manager at work, are you approachable in the sense that your employees or your people under you are willing to approach you and have those conversations with you? And when we talk about approachability, we are talking about, is there a relationship of trust, right? Do they trust you enough to open up with you? And when we talk about trust, it's all based on past interactions with you, right? I really love this analogy, which kind of captures this really well. How many of you here have heard of this plant? You know, in Singapore, it's really, really common. And when I was in primary school, yeah, my parents used to bring me around, those plants along the side of the road. We call it touch me not, but actually there's an actual name for it called Mimosa pudica, which I can't pronounce. Yeah, and if you have not seen it, amazingly, I have this video here, which kind of show you what happens when you touch me not. So what you see here is that when the plant is touched, all its leaves fall and it closes completely. And I think this is a really good analogy to talk about approachability, and based on the past interactions, everyone trusts somebody at least once, having that first time when people open up to you and choose to be vulnerable with you. How do you respond? Because how you respond will influence whether do they trust you to have that conversation again, right? So think back, when someone approached you and were vulnerable with you, were you dismissive? Were you there to actually be present with them? And so I'm going to talk about a couple of things that can kind of create that sense of approachability. So the first thing that I want to talk about is avoiding difficult topics. Yeah, many a times, one thing I've noticed is that parents especially, when the kids have difficulties and they have challenges that they bring up, sometimes these conversations are challenging. The topics that are being brought up, it's a lot easier for us to just give a passing remark, like, oh, it's tough, you need to grow up, you need to just handle it, that's just the way life is. And we completely skirt around the topic and move on to other situations, maybe asking, so how's your CCA, how's your school, and avoiding these difficult topics. I understand, especially when dealing with mental health, there's a layer of sensitivity to it, and obviously we need to be educated in terms of understanding how to approach this topic. But when we are the primary caregiver, when we are, for example, parents, we need to make sure that we do not avoid these topics, but actually step into the position to embrace it. Because if we don't do it, it's going to be a lot more challenging for them to seek counsel or to seek advice or to seek support from outside, right? So being the first line of defense, so to speak, we cannot be the ones that are avoiding these topics and changing the subject or just pushing it aside, yeah? And the second thing I want to talk about is listening to reply. And I really love this quote by, I saw it on LinkedIn about listening to reply. And I felt it's really true about how most people kind of take that perspective. There's a difference between listening and waiting for your turn to speak. I think as like Asian background or something, we're just so hardwired to fix problems, listening with the intent of how can I fix this? Or maybe it's because like when we are working all the time, our brains are constantly thinking of how can we solve issues at work and problems at work. And when we come back to our own family lives, when our kids tell us things, the first thought is how can I solve and resolve this issue for them? And maybe that's also a side of love, in wanting to fix the problems for them. But most often, youths are not asking questions because they don't really know the answer to them, but they just want someone to listen to them, maybe even hear their thought process out, someone to reaffirm their beliefs or reaffirm their decisions that they've made. Oftentimes, you will realize that they are not asking you questions because they need your advice, but rather they need someone to have that conversation with. I think one of the very good ways to approach this situation is actually clarifying it. What is the purpose of this conversation? Do you want me to listen to you? What do you want? Do you want my opinions? And yes, sometimes there is definitely going to be a place for opinions and giving suggestions, but always listen first and let them draw it out from you. So listening to reply is another common one. And the third one I'll talk about is weaponizing conversations. This is something that every single parents probably face, Chinese New Year and comparison, saying about how, your cousins or your brothers or your sisters. And what happens, right, is that we create an environment where people are not willing to open up about our weaknesses because we feel like this is a point, when we're being compared, we always think that we have to show our best foot forward. And imagine that context in a family setting when we have to show our best foot forward because, we know that raising our vulnerabilities and our weaknesses just create an opportunity for other people to kind of use this as weapons in the future, right? One thing that I think is super important is that when we talk about private conversations, this shouldn't be made public. Our private weaknesses shouldn't be made public. And so that's something that we have to be very conscious of understanding the context of the conversation that's being happened and making sure that this doesn't become something, a point of comparison or a point of recourse, because that completely causes people to close off and they will no longer like to share these conversations and have this meaningful relationship with you anymore. I like to talk about this next analogy to help you understand a bit better, and that is called object permanence. I am not sure how many of you have heard of it, but basically there was a study that was done that talked about how children under the age of 8 months, I believe, the moment they cease seeing an object, to them it ceases to exist in the world. Yeah, so there's this really cute picture of a dog, a toy dog, and the baby there. And the moment the shade is covered, the baby completely lose interest. It's as though the dog ceased to exist. And we have to kind of train babies to understand that, oh, okay, there are things that exist even though we can't see it. But over time, right, as we grow up, to adults, I feel like this is something that we kind of need to relearn, right? Because the thoughts and emotions and the realities that other people faces are in their own heads, are things that we do not have insight into, are things that we cannot see. And we need to respect that they are the one who have the clearest idea of what's going on in their own mental health, their own mental well-being, and we can't see it. We can't impose our own biases. We can't impose our own understanding of what's happening. I think the best way to approach this is actually to have those conversations and get them to explain to you what's actually happening. So how can we do that? That can take the form of regular check-ins. And by this, I mean making opportunities for you and your kids or your children to have that conversation that you want. And this can be from very simple in the form of maybe having lunch or dinner once a week, yeah, and having that opportunity to then share and creating that environment where people can be vulnerable. And regular check-ins can be as simple as literally asking, hey, how are you doing? And one thing that a really good tip or trick that you can do actually is being specific. So one thing that we do teach people is to remember the conversation that you've had and let your check-in be specific. Instead of asking, how are you doing? You can ask about a particular issue that they have mentioned. So for example, if they've complained to you about their work, a particular manager or a particular project that they're really stressed about, your check-ins can be more specific. So for example, like, how is that project handling? Previously you were mentioning that your colleague was difficult to handle. How are you coping with that? So having a check-in that's specific and regular creates that opportunity for them people to then open up and share. And the next thing I want to talk about is to listen intently, right? I use the word intently, intentionally, yeah? Listening with intention and genuine curiosity, wanting to understand what the other party is actually going through and asking the right questions to draw it out for them. I talk about how it's so important for us to actually listen to the other party and create that relationship of trust and being that person which people are comfortable with opening up to. I talk about listening intently because it shows that oftentimes when another party is being listened to, you feel like that there's a relationship that deepens a lot more. And this creates an environment where people are more likely to want to share with you. And I myself have experienced this many, many times, where when I take the position of a listener, oftentimes I feel that people are a lot more comfortable with sharing it with me. And I realize that sometimes I look back and I wonder, like, why would somebody like share with me everything that is going through in their life? And that's something that is puzzling sometimes, especially like when I'm meeting a complete stranger and I realize oftentimes it's because the people around them, no one is listening. Yeah. No one is listening from their friends to their families. Everyone just has something else to say. But when I choose to listen, that's when I draw it out from people and people actually are willing to share and be vulnerable. And next, I'm going to talk about validating emotions. And this is something that's really, really a big issue, like a very big topic. But I think breaking it down to something really simple is that understanding that similar to the baby in the incidents, we don't have full picture into what people are going through and the emotions that they feel. And the emotions that they feel at that point and the problems that they face to us may be a really small thing. I think, for example, right now, if you're looking back at your primary school or secondary school days, the issues that you face then seem so small and trivial, like exams and friendships. It seems so small and it's so easy for us to say that's nothing. Life gets tougher, right? But validating emotions is understanding that the emotions and the feeling, the experiences that they have at that time is real to them. And we need to acknowledge that. need to acknowledge that these emotions that they are going through affects them, and it affects their decision, it affects them, the way they view the situations. And us being dismissive makes them feel like it's wrong to have those emotions, it's wrong to be who they are. And that's not what we do. So there's many ways you can validate the emotions, but I think it comes from the place of understanding that the emotions that they are going through are real to them. And we just want to be understanding and empathetic to that. And lastly, this is something that is really, really crucial. Educate yourself. So for example, understanding, what's happening among the youths. Fantastic job for every one of you who came to this session itself. Yeah. Educate yourself in the sense of understanding, what are the major causes of anxiety or stresses even among the youths. But not just that, along the other things, for example, like especially about different mental health conditions that are out there, and what are the challenges that are faced by youth today in school. And yeah, I think it's always good to understand more about what's happening in this space so that you'll be able to have that right perspective and approach it appropriately. Next one I'll talk about is repairing spaces. And this is actually particularly challenging. Why I'm talking about repairing spaces is, for example, when a particular relationship has broken down, like when trust has been broken, how can we go ahead and then reestablish that? And I think that's something that's really challenging. Oftentimes, you feel like that relationship that you have, for example, with your children, is kind of broken, right? Trust has been misplaced, right? And it's easy for us to kind of say, that's something that can't be fixed. That's something that I shouldn't even approach. Let someone else deal with these situations. But hope is not lost. Yeah, trust can be repaired. And I just want to share with you a couple of ways, and that can be a couple of mini steps that can take towards that. Yeah. So I think one thing that's really important is to acknowledge, right? When trust has been broken, I think it's important to acknowledge that particular issue or that circumstance where trust has been broken and apologize for it. Explain that may not have been the best way to approach that situation. I think something that we always see is the difference between action and intention, right? And yeah, so maybe the way you approach that particular situation or circumstance may not have been appropriate or may not have been interpreted correctly. I think it's very important to acknowledge the issue and not just your intention. So acknowledge that you've possibly made a mistake in handling a particular issue. Express your intention that your goal was for their well-being and for their benefit. And yeah, take ownership of that mistake and express your interest to move forward in a different way. Yeah. From then on, the next issue is then being consistent, right? Making a mistake and breaking trust is one issue, but trust is built up over time. Consistently showing that from then on, you're making an effort to then build and develop that trust is something that will cause people to view it differently and will repair that relationship. So being consistent and reliable moving forward is a way that can then build and repair that trust that has been potentially broken. Yeah. And lastly, the one that I want to really talk about is living spaces. This is something that I feel most people, I've heard a couple of stories about how I guess it's out of a care and concern of your loved ones that you always want to feel like you want to protect them, right? And so one thing I want to talk about living spaces is creating that opportunity for there to be multiple layers of support aside from just you or the family itself. Living spaces for them to form larger support circles, interacting with their friends and getting that level of support, be it from schools, be it from counselors, being from their friends. I think that's something that's really, really important and missing in many conversations. So I think here I just want to share about a story. So I've had many conversations with our peer supporters who we call listeners, right? I do one-on-one chats with them and regularly keep in touch with them as much as I can. Yeah, it's challenging, but so from time to time I actually hear like the interactions that they have, with the people that they're speaking with. Yes, it's 100% anonymous. We don't know who these individuals are, but at the same time, we want to understand, who are the people who are actually on the platform and the people who need help. And one thing that we consistently hear is that they do not have friends, they do not have people, they do not have support circles that are aside from their families. And one thing that really hurts us, like really, that yeah, that's really like sad is that we hear stories of parents, their intentions of wanting to be good, but at the same time being constricting. Sometimes parents hear that their children have mental health issues or conditions, and because of their desire to protect them, they actually cut them off from their social networks, from their connections with other people. That's why it's so important for us to kind of leave space, create a space where they have the opportunity to meet, encourage them to go out and interact with new people, because only by having those, it may be challenging and difficult. We've spoken to many people who have found difficulty in opening up to new people, but it's a path that must be walked. There are definitely like support groups and communities out there who try to make things easier, and I'm fairly close one of them. We try to create community as well, but we need to push them to have that, to expand out and reach out to more people and have that support circles aside from us, so that we are not the only safety net, so to speak. And yeah, give them space for privacy. I think that's something that must be said, right? A lot of times, youths have difficulty processing their own emotions and the things that they go through. One way, obviously, is having conversations with people and speaking about it. But another way, is journaling. I've heard stories about, parents breaking that trust and privacy they have with their child, and albeit with like good intentions again, concern over their child's what's happening in their child's life. But there's time to have that privacy for them to have that time alone with themselves, that they're able to reflect, that they're able to process what's going on in their life. And unfortunately, I've heard many stories, of like parents wanting to step into that process. For example, reading their child's journal and diaries, which I feel is really, once that trust is broken, it's hard to gain back. Yeah. And it's important for them to know that they have that privacy and they have that space to process what they're going through. If not, it's going to be difficult when they realize that looking around them, the only path of support is you. And I don't think that's a very good space you want to be in, because they should have multiple areas in which they can get the support that they need. Yeah, and I wanted to keep this sharing rather brief, in the sense that giving us space to then talk about it a bit more later on. But I think that's more or less what I want to share with you all today about. I believe, to summarize, communicate even when it's uncomfortable or uneasy is one of the best ways to heal. Is simply getting everything out and getting people to share about it. I think this is super important to have that conversations, even though it's uncomfortable, right? And this could mean, for example, repairing broken trust. It could be, for example, having those conversations with your child to get them to open up. I think that's really important for them to have someone to speak, someone that they can trust, to have those conversations with. Yeah. And I think, yeah, that's all for my sharing. Creating spaces, having that space where people are able to come to you, approach you, and have those conversations that they need. Repairing spaces, rebuilding that trust if it's broken, and leaving spaces, creating capacity for them to get help from the people around them, encouraging that, promoting that, and supporting them in those decisions to get help. Yeah. And yeah, thank you so much for listening to me talk on and on. Yeah, I'm Jedaiah from Epidemiology, and if you want to reach out for whatever reasons, just feel free to send a message. Our volunteers are online also, so if your child needs someone to speak to, a peer supporter, they are trained by the wonderful Caregivers Alliance. Yeah, so if your child needs some level of peer support, just needs someone to have a conversation with, we are available every Monday and Friday, and soon Wednesdays. But yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Jedaiah. That was so insightful in terms of your sharing, and I think from your own experiences of working with youth as well, I think that was really helpful, and I really like the analogies that you used along the way as well. I think it really kind of captured our imagination quite a bit, and it also helped us know that, that we shouldn't be imposing into people's personal space, how to respect that, how to actually engage with them. And we really want to encourage all of you to also post any other questions that you may have in the chat as well along the way, so that we can also have a very fruitful discussion and a back and forth of what your experiences are that you all bring to this session, as well as what our panelists also will be sharing with us. So thank you again, Jedaiah, for that. So next up, we have Alex, who is actually a caregiver. And he's actually been with Caregivers Alliance through our program for a period of time already. And he has said that the program has been life-changing for him and his family as well. So, Alex is now a really advocate, a very strong advocate for mental health based on his own experience and his family's experience. So I'll hand the time over to Alex to share more about himself.
Thanks, Vina. Hi, everyone. Thanks for Cal for inviting me to share my story or my family story. And this is, I think this is the best place to be able to share with people who has probably similar in similar situation, and how I actually, or me and my wife actually got through a really dark period in our life. So I'm Alex. I'm a parent caring for my 17-year-old son. He's diagnosed with anxiety disorder and selective mutism. So selective mutism is a form of anxiety disorder. It affects mostly children, youth. They are unable to speak in certain specific social settings like schools, public spaces, and even with people. Right? They may be able to speak with their parents very well, close relatives and friends, but they're just not able to utter a single word, with a stranger or even to a teacher. So that's kind of affecting my son. So this was back in 2021. Let me bring you back to where it all started. It started back in 2021. My son Brandon, it was a tough year for him. He was doing pretty well in school, actually. And then his grandmother passed away from cancer. And it was a short period. So he was struggling to, come to terms with it, was still grieving. And then within the month itself, his best friend actually met an accident and passed away as well. So this has a huge impact on him. And we started noticing him, very quiet, withdrawn, and in schools, during school time, he actually got to a certain stage where he's so anxious, he went to the toilet and then he locked himself in. And we had to be called in to, get him out. And every time we go there, it took us quite some time to actually get him out of the toilet. And this happened quite a few times because he just froze inside. So it happened quite a number of times. School was also a little bit, unsure what to do. And this is a real challenge in Singapore, at least in my experience. Teachers are just not aware, what's happening and how to, calm him down and how to, handle the situation. Everybody was like panicking, what's happening, So that was that. And he became, refusing to go to school, losing motivation to do anything at all, right? So this really got us at a loss. We don't know what to do, and we are just, worried, for his state of mind, basically. The first thing that came was we need to get help for him. We need to, get a psychologist to help him. So we went, it took us quite some time before we could actually get him to see one, right? And when we got him to see a psychologist, he's willing to go there, but he could not enter the clinic. He just froze. And for him, he's as big as me, so I'm not even able to move him. He will be stuck there for an hour or so before we could actually get him to move again. So it was really challenging. And then I think I want to cut this short, and then we can actually have a conversation. So at the end, we managed to get him to see psychologists, and we went through a couple of psychologists, right? Some psychologist that suits him. So he's now with this current psychologist in which he's able to open up. Very tough. He's able to now open up to the psychologist, share, his personal feelings and what he intends to do. Hasn't shared with us yet, but he's willing to share with this current psychologist. We were really happy. He also went to see a psychiatrist, which has helped him to actually, get out of this, or at least put him in a calmer state, so that he could actually go seek help. So this is where it is right now. I see improvements. He's going to the gym with me every day. He's going out for walks with his pet dog. We are happy that he's making progress, and I will continue on this journey with him. So yeah, I guess I'll just stop here. Yeah, for questions later. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Alex. I can really relate to your son's connection with his pet dog. My dog is also my support animal, and it has also made a great difference in my recovery journey as well. Yeah, and it's wonderful that he's actually been seeking therapy and being able to have that avenue to support himself. And with your family's love, I'm sure things are turning around. So thank you for that. Next up, we have Serene. Serene is actually a mental health advocate who shares her lived experience with bipolar condition and ADHD. She's really a passionate young lady who is actually raising mental health awareness and working to make a difference in the lives of others. So over to you, Serene.
Yeah, thanks, Vina, and hi, everybody. Okay, yeah, I'll just share a little bit about, I guess, myself and why I'm here. So I am a person in recovery, and yeah, as you can see on the screen there, my diagnoses include bipolar type 2 and ADHD. And okay, I guess looking back, I feel like mental health issues have been like a big theme in my life. Not just, for myself, but because, even before, well, I got my first ADHD diagnosis at the age of 18, but before that, I actually really grew up with an older brother on the autism spectrum as well. And he has what some would call high functioning autism. He was only diagnosed at age of 30 or so, when he was seeking treatment for depression. So I actually became a caregiver to him a couple years ago, 2 years ago, when he was basically in his mid-30s. And during that time that I felt like I really needed some support or help. And that's when I got to know Cal, through that program. And anyway, so this is conversations about youth, right? So I'll talk a bit more about my younger years first. So I grew up in a pretty conservative family. We had a pretty conservative family. And at least for me, I felt like there was never really room to make mistakes or do anything against the norm. There were a lot of overachievers in our extended family, and because my parents sent me to an elite school, I felt like I was like exclusively surrounded by, like really rule-abiding people, high-performing peers as well as adults. And my parents, when I'm looking back, they didn't really pay much attention to me except when it was the kind of like scold me or punish me, especially my mom, because she had very high expectations in terms of academia. But okay, that's it. I think this narrative about having strict parents is not terribly uncommon in Singapore. Probably what made my situation a little unique as well was, the added aspect of being the younger sister of someone who was on the spectrum. And even though, as I mentioned, he wasn't like diagnosed until I didn't realize, we all didn't know he was on the spectrum until he was like 30, because he's actually got a very high IQ, and he made it through poly and everything, even though he didn't do very well, but nonetheless, for me growing up around that, like the difficulty was, aside from dealing with his, I guess what comes along with ASD sometimes, his unpredictable moods, sometimes erratic behavior. Occasionally I'd be on the receiving end of his outbursts, but I guess all of that also meant that from an early age, he's kind of got a big age gap, by the way, like I think 6 years. So from an early age, seeing my parents, like kind of how they had to worry and fret about him and deal with the consequences of his actions, and the stress that it put on them, I think from an early age, I kind of like internalized, or it affected how I saw my position in the family and how I was supposed to behave and how much room I had, I guess, I didn't want to take up too much space or add burden. It started, I mean, from as early on as primary 1. I remember, my parents they were being very stressed because they were talking about how they had to go to the secondary school principal's office, speak to the principal, and basically beg them to let my brother stay another year because he was about to be expelled mainly for poor performance. I don't know if behavior has to do with it too. But yeah, I remember that being a stressful event. And actually 1 year later, when I was in primary 2, same thing, he failed all his subjects and they went through the same process again, although unsuccessfully this time. I mean, he got expelled. And then I watched them go through the process of like, oh no, like we're gonna find a new school for him. And it was a very stressful time, I recall. And also, by the way, that year, I think that same year, he actually attempted suicide also. And I was aware of this, at that age somehow. I mean, you pick up on the situation, you put the things together. So yeah, I probably felt from back then that I didn't want to add on to any of this, these things that my parents were going through, or I had to, even though I really wasn't the best student either, but I kind of had to act like, I was doing things right? I didn't want them to know. I would hide a lot of things. I would just kind of not say too much or just talk too much about any challenges that I was experiencing. So yeah, I would say that was something that is a little bit different about my journey. On top of, I guess my own challenges that I started to deal with later on in life, which we can talk about as well, like my my recovery journey from diagnosis till today. So I guess that's an introduction to my background and me. Happy to, who do I pass on to now?
Thanks, Serene. Thank you for sharing the unique background about your family and the challenges that you face as a young person as well. It definitely sounds like it was quite a challenging time for you, having to go through that and witnessing your sibling going through those challenges in school and otherwise as well. So I think that adds another different lens for us and the caregivers here to understand better about what youth may go through at a young age of also being a caregiver and not just also a person in recovery, as you said, what they may see and what they may witness that also influences their own trajectory in life. Yeah. So thank you so much for that. So now we're actually going to move on to a Q&A segment, right? So really want to dive into all the rich questions that we see in the chat as well that have been coming up along the way. I guess if you would humor me first as the moderator, I guess a question that I have for all of you as well is that what was something that has inspired you in your journey to continue on with all the challenges that you have faced with, whether it's being a caregiver or being a person in recovery or someone who is supporting others as well as what Jedaiah is doing? What is the thing that continues to motivate you to actually to be part of this journey? And anyone, feel free to also just share any of your thoughts.
I think like what motivates me to continue in this, to try to continue to push awareness and obviously making impact in the mental spaces, because I remember having conversations with a lot of other mental health advocates who were discussing and just sharing our journeys. And one thing that really stuck with me was, how she said that she sent a text message to a friend, and like months later, further down the line, she said like how a friend was telling her that that text message that she sent saved her life, like she was about to run into the streets. And I go back and I think about all the conversations that I had with people. And a lot of times when people see things that, for example, they see a particular individual that they feel that maybe, requiring support, or someone who's going through something, and they always say that someone else can do that. Yeah. And I feel like, yeah, it's something that instead of saying someone else, like what if he actually said, why not me? Yeah. And I think that's the perspective that I take towards peer support, understanding that there could be a million other people who could, impact their lives, anyone who would come across them. But why not let me be the one that makes that impact on people's lives? And why not me be the one who step up to make that change? Yeah.
Wow, that's really powerful to hear that, wanting to step up, like you said, and take on that baton rather than leaving it to someone else to actually do that. I think that's a wonderful way to look at things. Yeah. How
Yeah.
about for Alex? Yes.
Yeah, just wanted to I mean, when Brandon was in that state, right, we were lost and we didn't know what to do. It took us some time before we actually open up and talk to someone, right? Friends, close friends, I mean, even colleagues. And we find that, in every case, people are, they don't come in and they start judging you, but rather they're coming in from the perspective of giving you support and encouragement. And most often than not, you hear stories, similar stories, maybe themselves or even their other friends who's actually in the same situation, right? So you feel that you're not alone. But when you are not, opening up or not speaking up, or not, seeking help or sharing your stories, you find yourself in a very dark space. So I guess that's what motivated or encouraged me to continue on, advocating mental health and go out and share this so that, it'll help more people who is still, in the dark, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely. And it sounds like, you're shedding more light on, what is something that doesn't have to be a stigma, actually, right? It's something that can be normalized and spoken about more, and so that other people don't feel alone, as you mentioned in the journey, as how you felt like you were not alone. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we need to talk more and more, and this is a perfect platform for this, right? I mean, sharing with more people, this mental health is on the rise, as you mentioned, 1 in 3 youth, right, from the latest study.
Yeah.
And I think we need to educate and create more awareness in terms of mental health so that people are aware, and especially in school settings, right? School setting, at least for youth, in school settings, teachers, educators, they need to be aware what mental health is and how to identify them in school so that they can reach out to these people who is probably at a loss, right? So I think we can do much more by educating and creating awareness.
Wow. Thank you for highlighting that. I believe that was also one of the questions that was being highlighted, what more can be done? And that's talking a bit more about in the school space, a bit more of what the education of the educators can actually support them in terms of looking out for students who are vulnerable, as what Jedaiah has mentioned about earlier. Yeah. Serene, any thoughts from you?
Yeah, I mean, I think talking about, let's say, advocacy, right, and mental health, I think definitely what as Alex rightfully mentioned, it's really about like keeping the conversation going and normalizing the conversation. And yeah, I think for me, and at least when we talk about youth especially, and looking back in, on when I was struggling a lot in like, growing up when I was, all those years, I think we were really missing role models or just people that we can, like it really feels, I think one of the biggest struggles or what was hardest about growing up with struggling with any kind of mental health condition is obviously feeling alone, right? And feeling like I mean, it's hard enough being a teenager, for instance, and what more if you're like struggling with this thing, and then especially like back then it was even less normalized, but I'm sure it's still a difficult thing, like it's a difficult process now. It's really about being an example and then making young people feel okay, I think, especially in this context. Feel that it's okay to talk about it. Like I felt like I had to hide everything that I was thinking, that I was going through. And yeah, I if I had, seen or heard more people being so open and willing to share about it, I'm certain that it would have quite changed my experience back then. So yeah, I think it is about normalizing the conversation, but I think in your formative years, all the more it's really impactful, I guess, to have someone with that lived experience, or someone older, especially, to like kind of hear from, and then you can look at and hopefully feel like, okay, yeah, like it's not, things can be okay, and this is not really the end. Yeah, I think that's how I see it.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. Like you said, having role models that we feel that you can emulate and you can resonate with, and also feel like, in that journey, you're not alone and there are others who are also going through a similar sort of experiences as you. Yeah, thank you for highlighting that as well. Yeah, thank you for sharing your thoughts so openly. Also looking at the chat, I think there have been some questions also about, firstly, addressing to Jedaiah, right? What would you say are some of the top mental health stresses you face these days?
So I think, like, based on the conversations that we see, some of the one thing that we notice is that the stresses that they face are relevant to whatever takes up the most amount of time in their life. So for example, when we speak to young working adults, it's their work, the things that deadlines that they are facing, office politics, the things that are consuming them. Yeah. And when it's school, it's projects and all the different things that they have to handle, exams, finals, yeah. Whatever consumes the most time. Another thing that we also have, like, people talking about, is relationships, right? Or the absence of it, that loneliness that they experience when they don't have people that they can speak with. I think, like, during the COVID period, we saw that very prevalently. Oh my gosh, they saw that very commonplace, where people actually experience a lot of loneliness, and they're coming to us and they're asking us, like, how do I have friends? Which is a very raw and real situation that people are experiencing. And I guess there's no right answer to this, but I guess that's what the youth is going through today. The stresses is the circumstances that consume the most amount of time, and that feeling of not having relationships, that community around them.
Yeah, so true in that sense as well. It sounds like, whatever is actually consuming their focus at that point of time is really, and also that need for connection. I'm hearing you say it's also very prevalent for them in also wanting to develop such connections in the first place. Yeah. We have another question, which is quite interesting. I would also like to open it to the rest of you if you have any thoughts about it. So it's saying that, it's commonly said that our youth, Gen Z, have a lower resilience to handle stresses and challenges. Do you guys agree? If so, how do we build their resilience? So we have a couple of people, I think, in that gen perhaps as well, who might want to respond or also share. And Alex, feel free as well if you have any thoughts about that, about your son's generation.
Well, if I were to start first, I mean, I'd say I don't agree. I mean, I am not Gen Z, by the way, but I mean, I don't think I need to be part of that community to see that. I'm sure that's not the case. I mean, why would they have lower resilience? Perhaps they respond differently to specific challenges and stresses. We definitely see a different pattern. For example, sometimes they talk about different habits or the way they do things in the workforce, applying for jobs, and maybe things they feel entitled to. That's something some people comment on, right? But I mean, I think that's just specific to that scenario. But yeah, I mean, like, they are youths, they are just youths, just like any other generation that maybe they have a different reaction to a thing, but I don't think that means that they are less resilient about handling stress. Perhaps it is a situation specific thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting perspective as well, right? Like you're saying, maybe they adapt differently in some ways or other as well, in terms of how they actually want to manage it. Alex, what do you think are maybe your perspectives as well as a parent?
Yeah, I'm not a Gen Z, so I mean, looking at the youth these days, I think in this digital age, they are so exposed to social media, technology, and sometimes when you go on to social media or even on the internet, you find so much of information being bombarded, whether it's fake or not. And I think there is this pressure as well in comparison, comparing with each other. Some people post something on social media and saying that, oh, this is how you should act and you should behave or you should look like. So I think all this has an impact, to the current generation as compared to my time where you don't even have a phone to view any TikTok videos or Instagram videos or reels, right? So I think that probably has an impact on the current generation and specifically to the more developed countries. Because if you look at countries that's developing, you probably see less of this because they're not so exposed to this maybe technology and not so much pressure from maybe parents as well or society, right? It's always comparing. You need to do well, and you're looking at your friends. They're all going up, achieving things in life, and you're not, and you kind of feel pressured, in that sense. And in Singapore, I think we know that all these tuitions, and if you have the money, you can just kind of get your kids to the best tuition schools or classes that is out there, right? And that plays a part in giving a leg up to these kids, and those who have not, then they kind of struggle. So I would agree that maybe they are less resilient in that way, because they sometimes also find themselves being very comfortable because you can, I mean, you're not going to starve. Still, you can go out and get food anywhere, anytime. You're not going to worry so much about money. In general, I think people are more well-to-do, at least in a more developed society, as compared to the developing ones. So I think it also, I think this has an impact.
Yeah, I see Jedaiah was like nodding to some of that things about comparison, and I think that's something that you raised as well, right, Jedaiah? Anything else that you wanted to add on as well?
I think like for the Gen Z is probably because, I think spot on, Alex, like it's a comparison thing. Seeing the peers around them, everybody seems to be so competitive, especially in Singapore, with people having like every single breakdown in internships, where people taking like 6 CCAs while overloading their terms, and they're basically working from morning to night. And it's just an acceleration of stress, acceleration of things that people want to cram into it because they feel like they need to remain competitive, right? I guess also the economy creates that stress, like only selected people can get jobs and stuff. So people are viewing a lot of pressure on themselves. I think that I wouldn't feel that they are less resilient. I feel like maybe perhaps also, which is a positive thing, they are more vocal about it, and hence people actually see this. But like the past generations, they've actually been through a lot, but just because they're not open to speak about it, they suppress it, and sometimes, further down the line, a lot of times I have conversations about how that then like springs out. Yeah. So I do feel like the current generation is under a lot of pressure, a lot of self-pressure in that sense, and from the comparison to the people around them. And yeah, I'm guessing they also are more active in that sense when they realize, I feel like that could be a potential positive thing. For example, when they feel like a particular workplace is not fit for them, then they leave. And then we see the effect of employee burnt out, right? That's what we are talking about. And we are seeing the effect of that, and we think that people are less resilient, but because they're more conscious or aware of their own mental well-being, then they choose to act in a way that is appropriate for it. I feel like that's what I'm seeing as well.
Yeah, for sure. So it definitely sounds like there could be other factors at play here, whereby they're also more vocal, as you said, they're being more resourceful in getting the support that they need and so on in terms of how they adapt to these challenges. Yeah, thanks everyone for your insightful views on all of this. Yeah, let's also kind of explore a bit more of some of the other questions. Yeah, Alex, there was a question asked about between you and your wife, who is closer to your son, and how do you and your wife split your caregiving roles to support your son better? Is there any ways that you guys deal with that?
Both of us play different roles, I guess. We're both really close to him. For my wife, for example, she is more like how would I say? She's taking care of all the practical things, right? Like doctor's visits, appointments, caring for his physical needs and so on, right? But when it comes to his breakdown or on his down days, he'll normally come to me, or I am going to be the one who is going to go to his room, or to speak with him, try to console him when he's having a bad day. I guess we play different roles here.
Yeah, definitely see based on your strengths about how you actually kind of support each other, kind of playing to those roles that you can actually provide that help to your son along the way. Yeah, thanks for sharing.
Yeah, Bina, I also want to add in here as well. I think as caregivers, my wife and I mean, we go through this at different pace. We are at different stages. Not every time we are at the same stage. But what I mean by stages are, whenever he is down, he has a down day, or things are going bad, we tend to go into a crisis stage. We don't know what to do, and we get frustrated, maybe angry at times, right? I may be a little bit more calm because I am at a stage of already an acceptance stage, if you will. So I think for us, it's always this roller coaster, right? And the different stages we are at, and we try to console each other as well as parents and as caregivers. I mean, I'll console her, she'll console me when I'm in the crisis stage. So we try to bring ourselves up to a stage where we are calmer. So that's the role we play as with each other as well. Yeah.
Hearing that you guys kind of like kind of check each other, how you're doing at your own stages, and also supporting each other along that journey as well.
I mean, it can be really challenging. Sometimes it's the worst thing is you get into a burnout stage where that is bad. I mean, there are times where we feel so burnt out, and we don't want to get into a stage where we get depression as well. So every time it's like trying to pull each other up, right? When you're down, okay, it's my turn to kind of pull you up, and I'm really down, she pulls me up. So there needs to be this role there as well to maintain that family harmony, in order to support your loved ones. And I think that is really, really crucial.
Oh, definitely so. Thank you for highlighting that, and that dynamic as well, like you said, within you and your wife, how you actually manage things as well. Yeah. We had a question for Serene as well. Serene, basically, I think they were asking a bit more about how do you handle or take care of yourself while also caring for your brother, and also to just understand a bit more about how you've been managing your condition, if you're willing to give us a bit of insight into that.
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely important to, like Alex brought up about burnout, right? Avoiding burnout. That's definitely important. So I think while I was caring for him, I think it was really important for me to also, being in recovery as well, especially, like, I think I had to make sure that I was, at the very least, I know I was, seeking like treatment where I needed it in this instance, like seeing my therapist more, and being able to, I guess, talk about it. That was important. Being able to talk about my situation, it felt very, and actually I think, like speaking to or getting involved in Cal's courses was actually to me, was a huge help, mainly because it provided that platform to be able to, like, talk about this thing that outside of that space, I felt that it was only happening to me, or I felt like no one would be able to relate to what I was experiencing. So I think confiding in people who could empathize, either at Cal or within my own peer group, I think that was a great help. And then as for what was it about, like, how am I managing my condition, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I guess actually it's a similar thing. Yeah, like I definitely have to not take it's definitely not to take recovery for granted, in the sense that it's very, recovery is not cyclical. Sorry, recovery is cyclical. It is not linear. Yeah, it's not linear. It comes in phases, right? It's up and down. So I think I had to learn that, not to, when it's going well, not to take that for granted, because it can change, and then, like, I have to kind of still put in the work, is what I mean. And that also includes, like, not to go off things like in my case, medication, and just to constantly try to do things that I think I like. Yeah, I think that's a lesson I'm just trying to remind myself all the time, is just I must always put in the work to kind of maintain, like, stability, or what balance I can find, because otherwise, if it can easily go awry, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think that's what I find important. And also just finding the things that I feel confident in doing and like to do, and keep doing it. It sounds like maybe obvious to some people, but I think sometimes when you're managing a condition, can be prone to some irrational thinking things. Yeah, so yeah, I would say reminding myself to do the healthy stuff, do the wholesome things. Yes.
Thank you so much for that insight as well. It sounds like, you're trying to get a really good balance of what is really supporting you and what is nourishing your spirit as well. And glad to hear that, like, even when you're supporting your brother and so on, you're also very mindful to take good care of yourself in your journey as well. Yeah. We have some other questions as well. I think there's an interesting one about as a parent, right? And probably even Jedaiah, I mean, I know you're not a parent yet, but I think the question is about drawing the line between being a parent and as a listener, because as a parent, we usually try to find a solution or give them an example to solve it. But what they only need is a listening ear. So how do we actually kind of support them in striking that balance? So yeah, anyone, Jed, would you like to weigh in first?
Yeah, sure. So I think previously when I mentioned that a lot of times people want to be listened to, I feel like it's, there is a place and time to have that conversation about solutions. And oftentimes it will come naturally. So like when you take the time to actually listen to the entire conversation, then for example, your child asks you, so what do you think I should do about it? Then that is the right time you should actually come in and step in and take on the role of a parent, finding solutions to your child. But I think the default state that we should take oftentimes when coming into it is that we don't have full context of what's actually happening in their lives. And so our role is to just be curious, to draw that out from them, to ask questions. And actually, most often when we are doing this conversation, when we are asking questions, we're actually helping them to process it. Because on their own, it could be this very huge problem that they are facing. But when we are genuinely curious and when we're asking questions, we are deconstructing it for them. And all of a sudden, they can begin to have a bit more clarity into how they can approach the situations. And sometimes they come up with the solutions themselves. And I think that's the best case scenario because they have the best context to it. And yeah, they will thank you for helping to solve the issue, even though all you did was be present and to listen. So I feel like oftentimes the default state should just be a listener. And when that opportunity or when that question is being asked, like, what do you think I should do? Or based on your experience, how can I handle this? That's the right time when we should step in. But other than that, yeah, that's just my perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really helpful perspective to have as well, about knowing when we can empower them versus also when we can come in and solution. Alex, as a parent yourself, what are your views about this?
I think Jedaiah is ready to be a parent. He's spot on. He's really spot on. I mean, I had so many conversations with my son, right? And all he wanted was a listening ear. And I think parents make mistakes coming in as a problem solver. They come in and they straight away wanted to give him a solution. Okay, I think you should do this, right? That's not what they want. All they want is just you listening and supporting them, right? And I guess I could understand from a parent's perspective, especially youth, because we have certain expectations, right? So, or societal expectation, right? By this age, you need to, go to uni, or by this age, you need to do something. You need to get ahead in life. So, but all this timeline is something that I think it's the wrong way to look at it, because your expectation is not his wants or his aspiration. So the timeline, your timeline is not his timeline. So you got to look at his own timeline. The only way to help the child is to let him have his own timeline. When he's ready, he'll do it. When he's ready, he'll be motivated. He'll move forward. The only thing we can do is to be there for him, by his side, support him. So I always tell him, when you're ready, right, let us know. We are always here, right? And it's your timeline, and it's how you want to chart your path or your life, right? I mean, success is all defined by yourself, right? It's not defined by someone else. So you define what success is, what you want to do, what makes you happy, and find your purpose and move forward. I guess that's what I want to chime in on. But Jedaiah, spot on.
Yeah, great. Thank you for sharing that as well. I think that's a wonderful way of looking at it, of redefining what timelines are and whose definition of, what trajectory that we take in life, right? And I like how you put it, Alex. It's really about us seizing that success and happiness for ourselves rather than depending on what other people say it should be. Yeah. Okay. A lot of wonderful questions coming in as well along the way, just having a look through. Yes, so a lot of people are getting the message as well about being present, being here, and so on. I guess there was another question, Serene. Was it difficult to talk about your mental health challenges to friends and family members during your growing up stage?
Yeah, definitely. If I look back on whether I even spoke to or who I spoke to about, I feel like it was, let's say, especially in like my secondary school years, poly days as well, I think virtually basically no one. I think the default was to tell nobody, even when things were getting quite severe, I remember thinking or feeling like, firstly, I think I felt that it was like, firstly, I guess I felt no one else was feeling the exact same way. Either that, or I felt that I blame myself for having those feelings or experiencing those things. So in a way, it's like, if I'm, let's say, weak for feeling these things, then I felt there was no use in sharing that information, or there would be no, I would do no one any good by sharing them that like what I was going through. So yeah, I think it was a very, and no one else was, I guess, or even if I heard someone else was going through something, I would somehow think theirs is worse, or another version of things that I mean, theirs is worse, so therefore, you know, there's no point in me saying mine. Or another version of negative self-talk I remember was like, oh yeah, like if I was thinking of doing something bad to myself or harming myself, I wouldn't want to talk about it either, because I didn't want anyone to stop me. I was afraid, you know, people will, of course, by default try to stop me. So yeah, there were a lot of reasons to not talk about it. So I just pretty much kept everything to myself during those years, during my growing up years. Yeah.
Definitely a lot of internal sort of challenges, concerns about people, what they might think and how they might also respond to you. I hear that as well coming across. Yeah, thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing with us what those challenges were. And hopefully that's something that our caregivers here, the people attending the talk, will also be mindful of as they're actually journeying with their loved ones or friends or family that they know who are young people who are going through such struggles as well. So there's a question from Robin as well. How to leave space for my child if he has already been cut off from a support group for a year? So a very interesting question. Anyone like to weigh in on this one? Maybe Alex first, as a parent as well. Any sort of support you may offer or insight on that?
What do you mean by leave space?
I think he's asking, like, based on what maybe Jedaiah presented earlier on about leaving space in terms of encouraging support circles, respecting the privacy of the child, and so on. Along those lines, maybe. I think that's what the person is talking about, especially if the person has felt cut off from an existing support group for a year.
Yeah, I mean, I can only speak from my experience. So he has selective mutism, couldn't speak with a lot of people. So his circle of friends is really, really small. And so what we did was, getting him to participate or to volunteer in, like, we just did one with the Willing Hearts where he delivered, food to the needy. And that way he gets to go there, deliver food, meet with other people, even though he doesn't speak, but he is not shy to do it. So I think that open you up to opportunity for, potential interaction. And we don't know when he would speak with someone. So that's what we did. And we're also getting him onto probably to NParks or SPCA. He loves animals and also plants and trees and nature. So that's where we are trying to get him to volunteer in some of these activities, to get him to, hopefully one day he could socialize with the people he interacts with. So that's what we're hopeful. We're hopeful.
Yes, I think that's a wonderful suggestion as well. Definitely volunteering, connecting in that way. We never know, like you said, the opportunities it creates for him to actually feel more comfortable to actually maybe speak or connect with people around him. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that example. So I think that was really relevant. How about Jedaiah? Any thoughts about that, about leaving space, the concept that you brought up nicely earlier on?
Yeah. I think I love what Alex said. When we talk about them getting support, it may not be in a specific form of like a support group in that sense, that's specifically for a mental health condition, but it can be for things that I'm interested in. So oftentimes I've had conversations with people who do attend CCAs or like things that they're excited about, just so that they have that opportunity to interact with more people and find community in things that they're interested or excited about. And I also do want to talk about specifically about support groups in general. I think when you do actually reach out for help in that sense, be it talk to a counselor, or you reach out to talk to a psychologist, there's no one specific one that's right for you. You're okay to kind of move around and find the one that best speaks to you. I think that goes the same for support groups as well. Have that conversation with your child, like why, for example, there could be incidences that cause them to have distrust among the support group or cause them to not want to go. So maybe there's a particular reason involved. I think it's good for you to have that conversation and understand a bit better. And there are many different support groups out there that's available. You know, you can recommend that they go for others and kind of encourage them to do so.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds like, you know, it's a trial and error basis, like what you're saying, Jedaiah. It's like really encourage the person to try different things that might work for him or her, and also figure out what is the best fit. Similarly, like when you're giving the example of therapists and so on, I can relate to that myself. So it's also a trial and error process of finding the right fit and knowing what would actually be helpful. Yeah, that's great. We have another question from Lily. She was like, how do you approach someone who is an introvert and is emotionally unstable? So anyone like to maybe share some of your thoughts on this? Serene, any thoughts that you may have?
Let me think. How to approach someone who's an introvert and emotionally unstable. Well, okay, I can't tell from how emotionally unstable we're talking here. It's important, I guess, to keep that in mind. But I guess my first thought is that, you know, introvert or not, like everyone is seeking connection. Everyone wants to find connection. So it is really about, you know, no matter how even if they may say otherwise, I believe that everyone is always seeking connection. So don't be afraid I think it's not to be afraid to approach them, and it's just about to finding the right way to I guess find out what maybe a good place to start is if there's anything that you might have in common with this person. Again, I don't know what context, is it a friend or is it what, but finding common ground would be a good place to start, and establishing that there's a common thing between two of you, and then take it from there. But yeah, I mean, I think I'm just the section about the highlighting the emotional instability indicates to me maybe not it people maybe they present themselves that way. I would try not to let that deter, like not to really see them differently because of that either. It's maybe be mindful about sensitivities, but ultimately deep down they just still want connection. And I think maybe focus on what you do know that that you know you can actually find in common and start something with. You know what I mean? I don't know. I hope that makes sense. Yeah.
I'm hearing you say finding common ground in some ways as well with the person, to start off what their interests are, similar to what Jedaiah was saying earlier about, you know, finding out what the person's interests and where they're coming from. And I'm also hearing you say it's like not letting the mask they might be wearing sometime of being, you know, unstable or whatever the perception we have of the person deter us from actually still exploring with them or connecting with them. And I think that's really helpful. I wonder also, Jed, any other thoughts about that question?
Yeah, I really like what Serene shared about everyone is seeking connection. Yeah, I've met a lot of people who are introverted, and I think something that needs to be said actually is that be comfortable in silence. So I've supported people who have, I think I remember one conversation where I supported a friend who was in the toilet for 2 hours crying. And not a single word was spoken. I just sat with him in the store. Yeah. As weird as that sounds. But yeah, just being there for him, and not a single word was spoken. And like after that, he thanked me and we had a conversation about it. I think, yeah, we don't have to always fill up every single moment of silence. We can just be there, and sometimes the physical presence of us being there and showing that we support them and that we are there for them is sufficient. Yeah, it's a physical reminder that they are not alone in what they're going through. Yeah, and when like what Serene said, I think, you know, taking them, not viewing them any differently, but still respecting that, you know, whatever they are going through, you just, there to support them and help them out.
Yeah, definitely. I think that presence that you've been talking about, being there intentionally, and also showing that you really care through your actions, not just your words, also plays a big deal in other people's lives. And that respect for even differences that we may perceive at times, and knowing that they're just human like us as well. They're just going through maybe a challenging time at that point. Yeah.
Sorry, just one last thing on the ad. Oftentimes, like, people misunderstand, like, introverted people. It's oftentimes that initial conversation, that initial trust that you need to kind of gain from them that's difficult. But once that relationship has been built, oftentimes you find that they are the people that you have the deepest conversations with, and they are the ones who are the most open to share. But it takes time to build and get to that stage. So I think that's like a misconception that most people have. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for clearing that up as well. Yeah, I think that's a very common misconception a lot of us sometimes have about people who are introverted, but it's just how they actually seek energy rather than being antisocial or anything else like that we may have in our minds. Yeah. We also have a question from Sei, who's asking, and I think maybe more specifically for Serene to weigh in on, also based on your lived experience with bipolar condition. So she's saying for youth with bipolar age 18 and below, there's not much support groups, or school lacks resources and knowledge on how to handle or support the youth to reintegrate back into school. Are there any avenues, or how did you support this group of youth who have such mental health issues? And what would you suggest in terms of the challenges that the youth might be going through as well to handle their mental health while going through puberty, school stress, and stigma from peers?
Okay, how to read? I'm reading the question. Yeah, how to support you reintegrate back to school, right? I think it's definitely difficult, I'd say, for it's also it's uncommon, firstly, less common to see a bipolar diagnosis at that age. So I can only imagine it is especially difficult, and probably why there's no support group. And truly probably a lack of resources and knowledge. So it's hard to say if there's probably we can't expect a very specific curated type of avenue or maybe but perhaps I think at least to find youth mental health groups in general, or maybe with similar conditions, or at least if it's people of a similar age also struggling with, I don't think it has to be the same condition. That's something that I have learned as well. I think the label of the condition is not so much important as it is like, okay, you want to try and bring together a group of people who are at least facing the same types of challenges. I mean, there are going to be other challenges even if there's a different condition. So yeah, I don't know if there's like support groups for people of that age, like of that's not limited to just a specific condition. But otherwise, if it's supporting as an adult, it's really, I think, still trying to listen and just hear what are the challenges that they are feeling, what are they really feeling, right? And to give them the room to really express what, or at least to feel heard or feel supported. And I think there needs to be some consistency. I think if this person has been out of school, then I think the important thing, what you can control hopefully is to maintain that stability outside of that, like in any other areas of their life. So be consistent in, let's say, the family setting, the home setting, or just something, because if they're trying to reintegrate, then that's going to be one big area that will be difficult to adjust to. So I would say, since you can't control the fact that there's no like maybe that specific support group, maybe just try to control the things that are healthier for this person, providing consistency and support.
Yeah. I think those are very key pointers that you brought up, Serene. So about that consistency, being there in that consistent way and actually showing the support and unconditional sort of regard for the person definitely makes a big difference, I think, in the lives of youth, like what you mentioned. So thank you for highlighting that. We do have a question for Alex as well. So Alex, have you ever had parent guilt? Because it's something that Christine has also been struggling with to some extent about whether her parenting style has contributed to her daughter having social anxiety.
Yes, yes, we do. My wife and I, we always question ourselves when we first started. You know, did we do something wrong? Did we pressure him too much? Right? I mean, it's gonna be there, but at the end, I think one thing we need to recognize is that mental health, it's not so simple as in, you know, if you are put into an environment and then that's it, you're into a pressured environment and you will turn out this way. Or if you don't expose him to you know, a setting where you have more social setting and he's always, you know, not being exposed to this, then he won't be able to talk. I think that's too simplistic. There's a lot of factors, and that could be just one of them, but there's a lot of factors. Sometimes I think it's genetics as well. There is also the environment, the people you mix with. There's a whole suite of factors that affects this. I think what is important is not to put the focus on this, but to put the focus on, you know, on how to, you know, how to progress and how to be happier, how to focus on things that will make you happy. Practice more on that self-care part of it. I think that is probably the most important part to get you out of that situation where you keep on focusing on yourself, having guilt, and I think at the end, if you continue to do that, you may find yourself in a very you may find burnout, and you may find yourself in a very dark place, which is not desirable.
Thanks for highlighting that, Alex. I think, yeah, it's so important to turn to ourselves with love as well and take good care of ourselves rather than focusing too much on the feelings of guilt. And, you know, like you said, it will happen, but it's not something that we can do as much about, but it's something that we can turn our focus to what we can do about. And actually, it's actually turning to our child with the love and concern and also taking good care of ourselves along the way. So now I'd just like to also invite Serene first, then probably Alex and then Jedaiah as well to just share with us maybe some closing remarks about maybe any thoughts about anything else, your final words of wisdom you'd like to share with the audience here today, and anything that you'd like them to take away from this session.
Yeah, okay. I think, well, when it comes to youth, I think community support or just having some kind of surrounding support is so important. And I think it's really great to see. I'm always very like heartwarmed when I hear from people like Alex, like, you know, to see parents who are so supportive of their kids' journeys, because, you know, not everyone has that. So I guess if you cannot, I mean, if you're here as a family member, it's really great, and please keep, like, you know, providing that support. That's really I guess the most direct form, and it's the most effective form of support that one can receive, like a youth can receive. But otherwise, you know, even if not, I would say not to worry, because I mean, you can still find that support from your community elsewhere. You know, there's this term also, chosen family, that some people have to, some people, experience. And it's really about building that. I think community is just really really crucial to the recovery journey. So yeah, if you can be a peer, if you're not a family member, you can just be a friend, and to reach out to someone who either is looking for help or may not be willing to ask for it. But you know that they need it, just be there, and we need to provide this safe space for everybody. So that's my parting words.
Thank you so much, Serene, for that. Alex, how about for you?
Yes, I think for all caregivers and also patients suffering from mental health, to look at, I think to look at mental health is just like any other illness. Look at it that way. When you're sick, you go seek help, you see a doctor, you talk about it, right? So mental health is the same thing. Don't have that stigma. Go out, share that with your trusted friends and families, right? And go seek help. I think the most important thing is to share. Once you share, you'll find that you're not alone, and that's where the happier times will come, where you will then go out, get help, seek help, and get yourself to a better place. I think that's important. And for parents, the timeline thing that I mentioned, it's very important. Do not compare. Comparing is detrimental, right? If you compare your kids to another kid and others, it won't end. So don't compare. He has his own timeline, as I mentioned. Give him the space, give him the time, and all you can do is to support and be there for him, and be the listening ear, and that's all. That's my parting words.
Thank you, Alex, for those wise words. Definitely let go of comparison, everyone. Jedaiah, over to you.
I think like from all the people that you set apart on our platform, I mean, I really admire Alex. Yeah, I've heard so many conversations of like youths who tell like our team that, their parents, their family don't understand what they're going through. Yeah. And like, if there's any parents here that's on the chat today and, you feel like that your youth may be struggling in a particular area, you've known them your whole life. Yeah. Don't disqualify yourself to reach out to support them, because, it's difficult getting support elsewhere. Yeah. And I know there's so much information available online in terms of like how we should do things, how we should do that. I mean, it's great to get educated, like, don't get me wrong. Yeah. It's great to have understanding, but don't let that disqualify you. Like, you don't dare to approach the topic because you feel you don't qualify, you don't know if you say the right thing. Like, that's your child, right? Have that conversation and help to make that understanding happen. Yeah, I feel like most people are just unaware of what people are going through. Like I say, just have that conversation. Yeah.
Thanks for those words as well, Jedaiah. Definitely, everyone, please start having a conversation with someone that you love today to actually spread that word and get them to actually get out of their shell in that way, to know it's okay not to be okay all the time. So really like to thank Jedaiah for his insightful sharing for today, and as well as Alex and Serene for being very candid in sharing their lived experiences as a caregiver and also a person in recovery. I really hope today's session was an insightful one for all of you. It definitely was for me. Basically, there will be also a short evaluation feedback form that we will be following up with you all via email after this. We would really appreciate your feedback so that we can continue to grow and improve this session for you guys in the future. And do follow Cal on our social media pages. We are on all the pages like Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, and so on. There are also a couple of book sales that we would like to also share with you about. So there's a Grieving and Living, A Mother's Hope, A Mother's Journey by Jenny Teo that is on sale, and part of the proceeds of that, the net sales of that book is actually going to be gifted to Cal. So get your copy today if you're interested. And there's also Still My Husband, by Margaret Ong. And a portion of the sales will also go to Cal in some form to actually support the programs that we are actually running as well. So the book links will also be shared via this follow-up email that you'll be receiving. Now a time for a special call out. We have a Cal for Mental Wellness campaign, C for MW, that will be coming up very, very soon. And we really like to seek everyone's support for that. It's Cal for Mental Wellness. It's actually Cal's annual fundraiser, and it kickstart next Monday. And we really hope all of you can join us for that. There are 3 ways you can do this. Firstly, you can actually start a sub-campaign of your own to actually do anything you like for mental wellness, right? So just grab your khakis, do something fun like, play badminton, go for a walk, do Zumba or anything or activity that you think might be fun to bring everyone along. And it can be something that you also want to keep an eye out for, campaigns that are started by other people, and you may want to also support them in that way. And thirdly, just spread the word about mental health and about caregivers, right? There are many more caregivers that we hope that you can support through our programs, and share on social media, tell your family and friends about it today, yeah? So we really do hope that you'll support us. The campaign runs for 4 weeks, starting from next Monday, 19th of June. And you can find out more information at calformentalwellness.sg on our social media channels too. So continue to stay safe and continue to take care of your mental wellness and support others around you today. Thank you everyone for joining in tonight's session.